Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. I'm getting ready to head off to Chicago later this week for the Vintage Computer Festival. This is the 20th festival they've been having, I think. I think it's called VCF Midwest 20. Either way, I know not everyone who watches my channel is going to be able to make it to that event. It would be awesome if you could, because it's an absolutely phenomenal event. But if you're not going to be able to make it to it, well, I wanted to bring a little bit of the event to my channel. And what this all means, what I'm trying to say, is that I'm going to be bringing some computers to the event just to have on my table so people can see some of the stuff in person that I show on the channel all the time. Well, one of the things I am bringing with me is this. This Commodore 64 is the field-found Commodore 64, which I had on the channel, oh gosh, a number of years ago now. And let me just do a quick recap on this machine in case you're not familiar with it. The video that featured this machine when I first showed it was one that really kind of kickstarted my channel. It was my viral hit, so to speak. This exact computer, the one you're seeing right here, was found in a field by a farmer here in Oregon, just outside of Portland. And the machine had been sitting there under this tree or wherever, like in a field, literally for probably about 20 years or more. The story was that I got from the guy who gave this to me was that in the older days, like 20 years ago, he used to go to schools and businesses and collect all their old hardware for recycling, resale, reuse, or unfortunately scrapping. And if you think about this type of technology, like Commodore 64s in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, they were completely worthless, as were most retro computers. In fact, he showed me a photograph from probably 25 years ago that had a wall just filled with Macintosh 128s, 512, and Mac Pluses that he got from schools. And he said he had to scrap all of them. He couldn't sell them, he couldn't move them, no one cared, no one wanted them. They were just all gone. Now, he had kept some other cool machines in a shed, so they were not left outside, and he actually sold some of those machines to me for a really good price. But this particular Commodore 64 was one that he just found out in the open that had been there since he probably got it from a school or wherever he ended up finding this. He didn't really remember. But he was cleaning up his property because I think he wanted to reuse some of the land for some other purpose, so he was picking up any of the scrap stuff that might have been just laying around, and this Commodore 64 was one of them. So he came over to me, he's like, "Would you like this 64?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." But then I thought, I don't know, maybe there's a chip or two in here that would be useful. Well, I brought it home. That's where the video picks up. I had to wash out an ant farm and all this rust and destruction that was inside of this machine. And I mean, it's a spoiler here because obviously what I'm going to be doing is testing this machine out. But after all the cleaning, the machine just worked. So this still has all the original chips in it. I can't remember exactly what I changed out. I think the circuit board for the keyboard is different because even though the keycaps, except for a few of these here, are original. So you can kind of tell which keys have been swapped out. So these lighter keys and these darker keys were replacements. And I can't remember these ones as well. The function keys, or some of them, and some of these keys were broken off. So I decided to use these keys from a bread bin. And these number keys were also missing. Now, the funny thing is, the case you're looking at is also the original case. So I just retrobrighted it, and well, I gotta say, it's been a number of years since then, and it's definitely re-yellowed. But I kind of remember after retrobrighting the case and the keycaps that they were the same matching color as these keys. And I had at least, I think, 2 more videos, follow-up videos on this machine after I got the original one working. I'll link to the original Field Found video if you haven't seen it before. It's definitely worth a watch because it's probably one of my earliest revivals, so to speak, where I thought that the computer was too far gone to ever work again. And when I powered it up, I think I had to bypass the fuse because it was completely rusted as well. And when I powered it up, and the machine just came to life, that was a whole it freaking works moment for me. It was absolutely amazing. Now, one other thing about the motherboard is that it had a ton of corrosion all around it. All the RF shielding on it had completely just disintegrated. And even though this is a 64C case, it's actually a long board in here. And that was what was originally in this machine as well. The early 64Cs, the ones with the keycap legends on the front of the keys, actually had long boards in them, at least here in North America. Longboard is the larger motherboard versus the later cost-reduced one that was in most 64Cs. This has a normal PLA chip in it, a normal SID chip that runs on 12 volts, and a normal VIC-2 chip that also runs on 12 volts, just like all the other bread bin computers. But anyhow, as I was saying, there was a ton of corrosion all around the motherboard, and of course the copper in the PCB starts to get eaten away. Well, there's only so much you can do to try to stop that corrosion. I tried to, take care of the corrosion by soaking the motherboard in evaporust, and that seemed to kind of stop the corrosion, at least for the steel parts of the board. But obviously we're talking about the sockets. The original sockets are still on here. I think the original power switch is still on here, which does still work. The original RF modulator is on here. I think I painted it in nail polish to just try to stop the corrosion. I'm anticipating the day when this machine will stop working, simply because the corrosion on the copper traces on the motherboard will get so bad that it'll start to have broken traces. It should be possible, if I do have those broken traces, I could maybe bodge over them. But I suppose eventually it might get to the point where it's so severe that this thing won't work any longer. This machine did make its way to Chicago with me last year for VCF Midwest, and it was working fine. So probably is going to still work fine, but it's been sitting on the wall where I keep it just as a display piece since I got back from Chicago last year. So let's open this thing up and take a really close look at the motherboard. Like, let's look at that corrosion on here. Let's see if this thing still works. And if not, I guess I'll try to repair it. But otherwise, I'm kind of anticipating this thing will just freaking still work. So looking at this thing, as I said, yeah, the yellowing is definitely coming back. I don't even recall it being this yellowed last year. I feel like this has all happened pretty recently. And I just looked up the date of when I made the original video on this, and it was 6 years ago. So I did the retro brighting on this 6 years ago, and this is where we're at now. Anyhow, yeah, so new springs, new PCB for the keyboard, because that was just completely rotted away and destroyed. Keyboard still feels totally fine. Power switch feels fine on the side. Looks like the LED for the power LED has fallen inside. I think the clip was broken on that, but it, yeah, I can hear something kind of floating around in there. But that should be easy to fix. I did put these rubber feet on because the original feet were long gone. This is the original sticker. Let's take a closer look at that. So the serial number is not really readable any longer. It's amazing this thing is even in okay shape at all. Needless to say, the screws are new. The bottom of the case is not yellow. This is, of course, the color it should be compared to the color that it actually is. And you can see the yellowing is on the sides as well. So it's pretty much everywhere that was exposed to the elements except for the bottom, which was not. Let's get this thing open and see what it looks like inside. I know we haven't turned it on yet. We'll just do that in a second. So that pops off, and yep, the power LED had fallen out. There it is right there. Oh, it's not even connected at all. Okay, that must have been something that I did, I guess. All right, well, looking inside, you can tell I 3D printed some brackets to hold the keyboard, and that it was simply because the original brackets are part of the RF shielding on this style of case, and they had completely rusted away and were just gone. So 3D printed brackets were required. I forgot the RF modulator, which is the original one, and it was working, by the way. The top cover had completely kind of rusted away. This was super rusty as well, but as I mentioned, I soaked the entire computer in evaporust. So once that rust was pretty much taken away, then I used clear nail polish just to paint over the shield. And I did it along all the sides of this as well, just to keep it from re-rusting, re-flash rusting. In fact, you can kind of see the shiny bits on the PCB, and that's where I painted the clear lacquer over those spots as well, just because I felt that there were little bits where the copper was exposed, and I wanted to at least try to stop that from getting worse. Now, the chips, they are the originals. Yes, they are. Obviously, I added these heat sinks, but I mean, yeah. So that was in the socket. I can't remember. That's got to be the SID, right? Or is that the PLA? That's the PLA. I think that's the SID. So this machine didn't have a lot of sockets. It just had the one for the SID, and I guess for the VIC, which has a little heatsink on it as well. These are original. This, I mean, the whole motherboard is original. You can see like the evidence of the rust that is still on it. Look around the bottom of the shield there. See all that rust? All freaking original. All original. I don't even know. I think it's the original fuse holder. I think I just used the Dremel just to try to polish it away a little bit. And I did swap out the actual fuse because it was completely rusted as well. But yeah, you can see the corrosion I'm talking about here on the traces, right? This is what I'm thinking eventually will be the downfall of this motherboard. Look at that right there. Original caps and stuff like that as well. Yeah, there's just a whole lot of originality here. I think just one day it might be eaten away. This thing was a survivor 6 years ago. Is it still a survivor? Let me get the cables hooked up and let's find out. All right, we are hooked up through composite, so let's make sure this is on the right input. And here we go, 3, 2, 1. That took longer than I was anticipating. I was like, no, it broke, black screen. Nope, it just freaking works. After all this time, 6 years on from this recovery of this machine, I have done zero to it. Just use it. That was like last VCF. Otherwise, it sits on a shelf, and it looks like it's working. I suppose the first thing I should do, let's put in the Easy Flash cartridge. Hopefully this thing can still read a cartridge, or Easy Flash. It's kind of a tricky one to work. Oh yeah, it works. So let's load up JaffyDOS. Yep, that works. So that's switching the kernel, which requires quite a bit of trickery to do through the cartridge port. That's not normally something that you can do on the 64. So let's go to Adrian's tools. Boy, it feels like I haven't used a Commodore 64 in quite a while. Dance Party, and yes, I do have the sound hooked up. Let's see what happens. Yep, it's freaking working. I mean, really? That is just so typical. Yeah, okay, well, there we go. It freaking works. It really does work. Now, because the keyboard has been replaced, the PCB, that is, all the contacts, I think there won't be any problem with that. And it's the plungers have also been replaced. The plungers and the PCB are from a different computer altogether because they were all just too far gone. I'm just trying to get out of here. What am I doing here? Okay, let's go to JaffyDOS. Actually, what I was trying to find is a keyboard tester. And I know I had one of those. What is this? Yeah, I know I had a keyboard tester in here, but I think it might be on my, oh yeah, this is just color bars. I think it's on the Kung Fu Flash, the keyboard tester. Let's swap cartridges over. It'd be easier to test the keyboard with a proper keyboard tester. Well, let's see here. I don't seem to have a keyboard tester on here either. How odd. I really thought I did. Okay, I'm copying the keyboard test onto the SD card for the Kung Fu Flash. There's a corruption on my card, so I'm having to do a check. So while we do that, let's pop the keyboard off. Take a look underneath here. Oh yeah, these memories are flooding back. All of this rust here, there's little bits of the RF shield, almost completely disintegrated on there. You see on the bottom cover of the case, there's little signs of rust that's still there. This rust you see here, this was even after soaking the motherboard for days and days in the evaporust. And evaporust is really good because it doesn't eat away anything else but the rust. But yep, these chips here, I mean, these are all original. I didn't change a single thing on this computer and it just works. And check out the corrosion on here though. This is what I'm talking about. This is still, I assume, happening underneath there. Look at me scratching away at it there. The corrosion there is at work underneath the solder mask. The only way to really save this thing would probably be to remove every component, sand down the entire motherboard, then recoat it with something. And I chose not to do that because I just wanted to see how long this thing was gonna last, just the way it was. And as you saw, we just fired up. But I mean, look at that trace right there. Eventually, I assume this stuff is gonna end up with a bunch of breaks on it. But it hasn't yet. I mean, look at this. Look how bad this is. Look at this. But this machine is still working, even with all that, which is unbelievable. Now, yeah, like the nail polish I painted on there was really just to cover up the exposed copper, which I should probably do right there. But I didn't purposely try to sand down any traces or make things look better. No, I just turned it on and ran it. Pretty sure these are all original as well. Some corrosion on that one pin on that regulator. I don't know what that is. This just looks horrible. Look at those traces. They're so eaten away. So eaten away. You can really see all the rust and stuff here. So, yeah, this thing is in rough shape. But somehow it refuses to die and it continues just to be a survivor. Okay, so I think it said it repaired the card. Let's hopefully we're able to get to the keyboard tester. You know, it would be easier to use the keyboard if it weren't upside down. Did I just speak too soon? Like, what's happening with the keyboard all of a sudden? I can't... The up key doesn't work all of a sudden. What happened here? I see this 6526 is in a socket here, so that could be affecting our keyboard. Let's just go to basic here. I want to see what exactly happened. Oh yeah. Okay, we have stuff that's not working here. Including the arrow keys, which were working earlier. So something happened here. Oh, I think it's the keyboard connection on the motherboard here. Oh yeah, okay, that was it. So that little connection there, I probably should pop some deoxit in there. Yeah, now we're good again. So all I did was just move around the connector on the motherboard. Since that's the original connector too, I really didn't change anything. And the order of the files in here, it's not alphabetical, but either way, here's our keyboard tester. Okay, yes. Let's see if everything is working now. I don't think my shift lock key works. I think it must not be hooked up or something, because it doesn't work. Pushing it doesn't do anything. I think it should turn on this shift key and the shift lock at the same time. That doesn't work. Spacebar, F keys, and the restore key. And I'm not sure if this can actually sense the restore key, which is the non-maskable interrupt. Either way, all the keys are working here, at least after moving this around, except for shift lock. And I think that would explain why shift lock doesn't work. I just never hooked it back up again. All right, so the question is, should I actually try to clean this keyboard connection? I think I'm going to try. As you can see, it's pretty oxidized. Maybe a Dremel would actually clean that up a little bit. But I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to put some deoxit on it and call it good. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just put the deoxit inside this connector itself. It's just easier. Should help. And I recall now, actually, this is disconnected, the power LED, because at the show, I had the top cover removed. And with the top cover removed, this doesn't really work. Although I suppose I could just leave that connected, and we'll just leave the power LED off to the side. So let's just make sure with the deoxit, we're still looking good. And there's the restore key. Actually, I think the deoxit helped it because I couldn't get it to work. You do have to push the restore key pretty hard, just the way the circuit's designed, so you don't accidentally hit it. But that looks like it's actually working. Cool. Well, I think I'm going to skip any kind of further testing with this. There's no point to run the diagnostic harness because pretty much I'm sure everything probably just works perfectly on here. Dance Party was working with good sound. So the SID is looking good. PLA obviously is working. Keyboard is working after just some deoxit on there, but I haven't touched anything else. And the fact that the Kung Fu Flash and the Easy Flash both work kind of tell me that, yeah, pretty much there are no issues with this computer at all. In fact, I recall at VCF last year, I left this machine on overnight, so it was running for basically 24 hours solid and running 8-bit Dance Party. And when I came in the next morning, I turned on the monitor, I was like, oh, the computer was left on. It was still just sitting there running the demo, working perfectly. So there we go. That's really what I wanted to do with this video. That's kind of a short one, but I just wanted to see if this thing works, and it still does somehow. It kind of blows my mind. It really does blow my mind how this thing just continues to work. And I guess the only thing it's a little bit worse for wear with is the yellowing that has come back. The corrosion on the PCB looked bad even when, like 6 years ago when I recovered this thing. So I don't know if it's any worse, but maybe the last thing I should do, I'll just move the keyboard off the side. Let's just take a good picture of this with the top-down camera, and maybe in a few years I can compare and we can just try to ascertain, is the corrosion getting any worse or is it stabilized? Down in the basement, by the way, where this thing lives, it's pretty much always 20 to 21 degrees Celsius all the time. So it's like 68 to 70 degrees. That's 365 days a year. Humidity is also about 45%, maybe at 50 on the high end during a rainstorm and stuff like that. So it's very stable humidity down here as well. Pretty much ideal conditions for preserving machines like this, I think. Like maybe if I had this stored in the garage where it was a lot more humid, cold, hot, you know, depending on the season of the year, it's not climate controlled in my garage, that the machine would age more quickly, maybe. Using the top-down camera, that is how this thing looks. I'm just gonna hold it still for a second here. So let's pay close attention to any corrosion on these traces in the various areas. And we'll just have to see if it doesn't work in a few years, and if the corrosion has gotten worse. I just don't know. There was this here that I exposed. I'm gonna grab nail polish. I got some right here. I'm just gonna paint over that exposed copper since it was covered, quote unquote. Although I think when the resist has bubbled up like that, I don't think it really is protecting the copper at all, which probably explains why the copper that I exposed when I scraped it away was kind of a dull color. It wasn't green, but it also wasn't the shiny copper color anymore. It's kind of a dark copper. I think for transporting this over to Chicago, I'm just gonna put the screws in a little bag here, and I'm gonna keep this open. That way at the show, when I show it on the table, it will just be open so people can look inside and see it, because I'm confident that transporting this to Chicago in my suitcase should be fine without the screws, because it's gonna be wrapped in some bubble wrap anyways. And there we have it. The Found C64, 6 years on, still freaking working. I can't remember if I made one of these videos on the second channel last year testing this machine. I think I did actually. So maybe this will become an annual tradition. When will this machine die? Place your bets in the comment section below how long this thing is going to last. And will it keep yellowing? Probably. And will it die soon? Maybe, but maybe not. And when it does die, how hard will it be to try to recover? Because of course, there's so much corrosion on the board, when it does die, when a trace breaks, it's not like it's gonna be obvious, oh, that's the damage. Because the damage on this machine is here. Here's the damage, the whole thing. And yeah, that's gonna be it. Thanks to my supporters. They make it possible to do this full time, especially in light of all this YouTube calamity that's been happening in August, where views are down and all this, that, and the other thing. And I'm really looking forward to VCF Midwest this year. It's just a few days away, and I'll be seeing you there. And you'll be able to see this machine. Plus, I brought some other stuff as well to show off on the table. I am at, I think my table number is L01. So back corner, same position I was in last year, actually. So if you saw me last year in Chicago, same spot. All the other YouTubers, there's gonna be a bunch of the Mac guys near me. Clint, LGR Clint's gonna be there. David Murray's gonna be there. Sean from Action Retro's gonna be there. David Lovett, Usagi Electric, unfortunately is not gonna be there. He wasn't gonna be able to make it to this event, but there will be some other awesome people there as well. So definitely looking forward to that. And I hope to see you there. If not, then at least you know that this machine, at least up until this point, works. Let's just hope they don't lose my luggage, because then that would be the end of this machine. What would I put down on the forum? Commodore 64 found in a field, priceless. Anyways, I don't have a connection. That means lost luggage is not likely. Anyways, thumbs up if you like this video, subscribe, all blah, 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 the usual YouTube stuff. I guess there's a hype button or something now too. I mean, give me a break. I don't know about that. And that's going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you next time, or I'll see you in Chicago. Bye.